Okay, welcome back. This is Copper Jacket. I'm doing a second follow-up video about VZ grips. If you'll remember, maybe you haven't seen my previous video, I replaced my Hogue rubberized SIG grip on my SIG 938. Real quick, no magazine, no round in the chamber, clear and safe. So, last video we went over some of the pros and cons about VZ grips, and only one real con stood out. Okay, the price, not great, but I wouldn't consider that a con. If you're looking to spend the money, spend the money. The issue we found was on the back where the grip actually feathered itself into the backstrap material of the weapon. They didn't feather it. They left it chunky and almost step-staged on the side. And whenever you actually positively engage the weapon, I noticed after about 50 to 100 rounds, I started getting lines in my hand. It was actually kind of uncomfortable. So I went ahead and took care of that. And what I did was to sand it down. Let me go ahead and pop one of these grips off so you can see. Okay, on the grip itself, this was more squared off. Let me see if I can get it to where you can actually see it. You'll notice now it takes on more of almost like a wing profile. It wasn't like that before. It was basically squared up and over, and it was actually pretty uncomfortable to shoot that way. So I was able to use a metal file, which just a little triangular metal file, nothing special, and go across it and take off that edge. From there, it leaves a pretty rough material, so I was able to use 400 grit wet sandpaper and sand that down. So I sanded it nice and flush. That still left it a little bit rough, so I was able to use 600 P600 wet sandpaper and then hit it down even more. By the time I got through that 600 grit sandpaper, it's just glass smooth at this point. So then when you put it back on the weapon, let me throw these in real quick. Now when you look at the back strap, it actually, you can't tell where one starts and the other ends. It's feathered into it the way it should be. This wasn't a real hard modification to do. I think it took me all of about 15 to 20 minutes. I would recommend, if you're going to sand on G10, all the sites that carry G10 recommend that you wear a respirator, because the G10 material, as it gets airborne from sanding, can get in your lungs and cause some real issues. You can do that or sand it outside. Just try and keep the dust to a minimal. And then obviously when you're sanding, that's more of a complaint for the filing. When you're sanding, you're using wet sandpaper. That keeps all the dust pretty much to a non-existent level. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It was a small modification that I had to do. I kind of feel like maybe VZ should have seen that coming and fit them to the gun better, especially for the cost. VZ grips run about $70, at least for this set. And I kind of feel like if you're going to spend that amount of money on such a small grip, it should have been already taken care of by VZ. But I don't know if maybe that was just me being overly particular about how this finishes out and how it feels to me, but I kind of feel like that shouldn't have been an issue. I would still buy these grips again for other weapons as well. I'm not sure if their 1911 grips are already tapered or not. That would be something to look into, of course. But after sanding it and realizing how easy it was to modify it to fit this perfectly for me, not being a big deal to do it, I would still buy VZ again. So not a deal breaker for me. Let's see. The only other thing I want to talk about here would be the trigger. I got a couple emails about that. People that have the 938 shoot it, love it, and just feel the trigger was lacking something. and I kind of felt the same thing. The original stock trigger for this was plastic. SIG put in a plastic trigger with raised ridges on the face of it. That caused it to be a little bit uncomfortable when shooting. It actually will leave lines in your fingers. It just wasn't doing it for me. I felt the trigger stack up and it was kind of gritty, so things that I did to fix that. I went through RTK and picked up this anodized aluminum trigger. This is they call it zombie green. To me it just looks kind of OD green, olive drab, dull, but it's got a smooth face on it. It's a little, the geometrics on it are a little bit different than the stock trigger. It kicks out further on the bottom at a different angle, so that when you pull straight to the rear, you get more of a true straight to the rear feel than you do with the original stock trigger. It was a little bit of a challenge to get it in. I didn't have a drifting pin pusher to push the main pin out, so I had to kind of make a tool to do it. But it wasn't overly difficult. It's just they really get that pin set in there well. I mean, it is the main integral pin for the trigger, so it's important that that stay tight. But if anyone has any questions as to how that got done or how I did it, feel free to email me or send me a question there, and I'll get it taken care of. I'll let you know kind of what I did and what worked for me. That little bit of a modification honestly made a huge difference in my shooting. The trigger, I polished the internal parts to get rid of the grittiness, of course, and the stacking isn't near as bad. Now it's nice smooth motion all the way to the rear. You feel it just before it breaks, which is really nice. I really enjoy shooting it now. The original trigger, I was told they used plastic to save on weight and cost. The gun was getting kind of expensive with all the parts they were putting into it, and they thought they could save you a little bit of money by putting in a plastic trigger. Frankly, I would have paid more to get a metal trigger on it. But yeah, again, that's, I may not be representative of the normal consumer. The weight, this is not an overly heavy gun anyway, so I don't think weight should have been a consideration there, but I suppose if you were trying to put maybe a stainless steel trigger in there, you might have added a little bit more weight, but for an aluminum trigger like this, it doesn't add any weight, and it honestly helps out a lot. So RTK, great company, also an American company like VZ, so anytime we can reinvest into ourselves, it's all the better. But well, that's about it. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I don't want it to get too long. Just closing out on the VZ grips. I wanted to make sure you know everyone was aware that that may be an issue if you are looking into these grips and then you spend all that money on them and it doesn't fit quite right. That might be a good little modification that, you know, doesn't take much time but adds a whole lot more value to the way they fit. Outside of that, that is where I'll leave you. Alrighty, thank you.